Hello, and welcome back. I'm now joined by Adam Steiner, who is running to be also the District 3 City Councilor. You're running against Joel Winnett, and the election is just around the corner. So let's jump right in. District 3 is, to remind people, precincts 4 and 7.
Right.
You've been all over town. You've been campaigning. Many folks have got to know you over the last couple months and the last several years. But for those folks maybe tuning in for the first time, tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're running.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you. I'm absolutely a product of Framingham, born and raised here, born at Framingham Union. My parents live on Swanson Road and are still there.
Okay.
And I went through the Framingham Public Schools, Potter Road, Walsh, and Framingham North. I married my high school sweetheart, in fact, Carrie. And now we live on McAdams Road in District 3. And family is really important to me and defines me. You know, we have two girls, one at Walsh and one at Hemingway. And my experience in Framingham now as an adult is to a certain degree reliving my childhood through their eyes and being able to go to the same places and see how they experience them. And also, experiencing new things that I didn't do as a kid growing up. And so that's really been wonderful. And really, they're the inspiration for me running for this position. Growing up in Framingham, I always felt like this was the perfect place to grow up, that Framingham had everything you would want. And I want to make sure that my kids feel the same way, and that when they reach adulthood and they're deciding where they want to live, that Framingham is the place they want to go. Professionally, I'm an educator. I've taught high school social studies for 8 years. And then for the last 10 or so, I've been a technology integration specialist, which is a really fancy way of saying that I get to do really fun things with teachers and students in the classroom with computers, 3D printing, programming, and I work for the Holliston Public Schools. And I just finished a PhD from Boston College. Thank you. It's a big relief to be done with that. 6 years of hard work. And that was focused on universal design for learning, which is a way of designing curriculum so that you meet the needs of all learners. And it brought technology into the fray as well. So that background in education, my PhD was really looked at data and research and using that to make decisions. And I think that combination of knowing Framingham, but also having this research focused, will be a real asset on the City Council.
Excellent. And I'm excited to also hear a little bit more about, you've been in Framingham from the beginning. You've raised your family here, sort of leadership around town, things that you've done, positions held. Can you talk a little bit about that as well?
Sure. So for the last 5 years, I've been in town meeting. I initially was inspired to get on there to help support our schools, but it's been a really an amazing experience to be part of town meeting and to learn some things about town meeting that work really well and some things that I think the city government will do better. One great thing about town meeting is that it really meant that every neighborhood had representatives that were there. It's such a large group of people that if there was a passionate interest of yours, you were able to go there and talk to your fellow town meeting members and make sure that interest was represented. One of the challenges I've seen in town meeting is the inefficiency, that to a certain degree, that micro focus on individual needs can sidetrack really important issues. And then just the fact that it meets so infrequently, only twice each year, means that decisions that should be handled right away sometimes have to wait months. So town meeting has been a big part of my engagement. For the last couple of years, a couple years ago, as we were approaching the charter process and just as I was getting more involved in town politics, I started a Facebook group, Framingham Government and Community Chat.
I spent a lot of time on that Facebook page, so thank you for that. It's where I learn about what's going on around town, often before anywhere else. So thank you for that. And the folks watching at home, it's a quick Facebook search to find it. Can you say the name again?
Sure, it's the Framingham Community and Government Chat. It's one of the two.
Okay.
If you search for community and government or government and community, you'll find it.
Okay.
And I'm no longer moderating it in the interest of, making sure that there was no bias. I handed it off to some great folks who volunteered. When I started, it was just 10 people, 20 people, a couple hundred people, and then as the charter discussion really got heated, it was a good place for people to go, and it grew, and now it's at nearly 2,000 members. And it's a challenging environment because you have really strong opinions, and the people who tend to post the most are the ones with those strong opinions. But it's it was a good experience for me in managing folks who have a real passion and trying to work with them to have some respect for each other and organize their ideas in a way that they're not always attacking. And I think right now that's really difficult because passions are so high with the current election. But I feel that's a strength of mine, and it's something that also will be important in City Council. Even though we're representing individual districts, we're going to be 11 people that have to work together, that have to understand the whole town, that that represent the interests of a district, but understand that Framingham is in it together, and that also is going to be true of the mayor. And then lastly, I think my experience in Framingham is just, raising kids here. I mean, I know the schools because I'm going into them, going to curriculum night. I'm taking my kids to soccer games and gymnastics and basketball and softball and swimming. It's like every weekend there's about 5 events to go to, and going to the fairs and the farms and all the great things about Framingham for families.
Well, excellent. And I just wanted to mention the Facebook group.
Yeah.
It just doesn't seem to matter what time of day you go on. I was midnight just 2 nights ago trying to finish up some projects before I let myself go to bed. It was probably like 12:30, and something got posted, and I was watching the back and forth chatter. It reminded me of one of those old AOL chat rooms where you would write, somebody else would write, because people are so committed to this process. The people are so excited and concerned at the same time about the future of Framingham. I think it's beautiful. I think it's wonderful. But they're taking to this medium that you've set up for them, and they're continuing the conversations well past when town meeting ends, well into the night. And as I sat there finishing up my last couple of constituent emails for the day, I just watched a conversation ensue that was a little bit more like an AOL chat room than I'm accustomed to on Facebook, but it's really because you've set it up and people like you are committed to making sure those conversations are allowed to happen. So on behalf of those 2,000 people that are regularly chatting, thank you so much.
Sure.
I want to talk a little bit more also about your priorities for Framingham. You mentioned you'll be representing precincts 4 and 7 and District 3, but you'll also be advocating for the town overall. So can you tell us maybe 2 or 3 of your top goals for your time as city councilor if you're elected?
Sure. I mean, you mentioned this excitement about the election, and I think that the new city councilors and the mayor and school committee need to capitalize on that excitement and not lose it. And one thing I would like us to do as a group is to travel around and have community meetings in each district, in each neighborhood, to meet people and let them know that we weren't just engaged in visiting you and knocking on your door and talking to you because we're running for office, but because we want to hear your ideas, and that doesn't end on November 7th. It actually should begin on November 7th or November 8th, hearing those ideas. And I especially think about communities in Framingham that have historically been disengaged from our government, including our immigrant community, how important it's going to be that we go to them and be welcoming and begin that process of celebrating the great things about Framingham, including our diversity. And so that to me is priority 1. And I also think there's going to be some healing that needs to happen. In every election there's going to be people who didn't win, and they may feel upset and worry that they're not going to be represented. And we also need to make that clear that that is not the case, that we will be representing everyone, and we want those voices heard as well. So that's sort of right away we should do that. The second thing would be a more permanent neighborhood-based advisory group system that I would like to see set up, where each neighborhood helped to be led by the city councilor, meets with residents, and taps their collective wisdom to guide the work that we do. I've seen this work with Downtown Renaissance, where we have a group with community leaders and business owners and government officials sitting around the same table and just saying, what can we do to make things better in our part of town, in our part of the city? And I think that should work in Knobscott, in District 3 in Knobscott and Pheasant Hill, talking about Callahan and the new developments that are going in, making sure that we have all those voices heard. And that sort of leads into number 3 to me, which is to get a real handle on all of the proposed and in the works development that's happening. We need to figure out on a citywide basis what is going to be the interaction of all these proposed developments. Are they the right move for us? We need to take a breath and make sure that we are not making decisions that are going to have long-standing negative impacts on the quality of life in Framingham. And that as well needs to happen right away.
Well, our time, unfortunately, is drawing to a close rapidly. I like to ask everybody who comes on the show to answer the same question in closing. Why Framingham? What is it about this town that you have stayed over all these years? You've put yourself out there as a leader in the community, but now you're taking a couple steps beyond what most people do. You're putting yourself out there, you're campaigning, you're trying to be one of the first city councilors. And I like to think, I believe actually, that there has to be something not only about you and folks like you that are running that makes you special, but the town itself. And so, why Framingham?
To me, in a lot of ways, Framingham is the perfect place. That our diversity, ethnic, religious, economic, geographic diversity makes us special. The fact that you can experience cultures from all around the world right here, that you can go to farms, you can live in neighborhoods, you can go downtown and have an urban feel, that really is special. And when I talk to my friends who live here in Framingham, that's really what keeps them here. That really doesn't exist, I think, in any of the towns around us. That's really special about Framingham. A second thing is the quality of our school system, and something I'm really passionate about as a public school educator. I think we have excellent schools, and we're going to need to make sure that as we shift our system of government, that we don't lose that we maintain excellent schools. So that is, a role that I would like to take on in the city council as well. Growing up, again, I thought Framingham was the best place in the world, and I want to make sure that happens. And so hopefully I will be on the city council, and I ask everyone for their vote on November 7th.
Excellent. I wish you the best of luck as you finish up this campaign. And I'm so grateful that you took the time to come on the show. For those watching at home, Adam Steiner and Joel Winnett, if you live in precincts 4 or 7, the newly formed District 3, these are your 2 options going into the November 7th election. One of them will represent you on the new city council, so do your homework. If you haven't watched the video or the interview with Joel Winnett, do that as well. And make sure you get out and vote November 7th. If you live in that neck of the woods, you still vote at Brophy Elementary. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time.